And a little more video regarding the small excavator, the Yanmar VIO50-1. Since it was going to be taken into the garage for a little bit, I lubed up the roto tilt attachment and detached that. It's gonna be stored in a different location. I'm not bringing that into the garage also. And it came off without trouble. We had removed the cover plate here for the boom cylinder because it's been leaking a little bit of oil, and I also know that the kind of cover plate, protective plate under the machine is in very bad condition, so took the machine up a little bit for easier access and removed the leftovers. It's crumpled and in bad condition. It's been jumping around on tree stumps doing the cultivation in some areas. Now we have that one with drag behind the forwarder, so this machine will probably see less of that kind of work. Had a strip of thin metal I kind of bolted in place and pinched with the bolts to make some marks and see if I can have a beefier plate produced for under the machine. So I needed some measurements here for hopefully a good fit. Time will tell. That will be a future video. We brought out some rubber mats, some old conveyor belt and some little wooden sticks under them so water can run under it and find its way to the floor drain. And then it was just a matter of rolling the machine in. And once it was in the garage, by now some snow has arrived and winter is here. Decided to get the share out for better access and go over the wiring and figure out the problem with that solenoid in the back. One bolt is a little tricky, the other three are easy. And then it's surprisingly heavy, but not too bad. With that out of the machine, you can start seeing the wiring for the key switch and the fuse box. And here they have cut wiring and reconnected and spent some time trying to figure out what the wiring was doing. Was a little worried. I didn't want to disturb anything having to do with that rototilt attachment, so I took my time here rather than rushing and going too fast and running into trouble. I don't like the electrical part of the machines. And here I found a bolt. We have been in here before because we did something special when the starter relay was acting up some years back, and the bolt here has bad threads, but I don't think that's causing the issues we're having. But we figured out that one wire that goes from the fuse box has to do, that's cut and has a black wire disappearing somewhere inside the right armrest or inside under the dashboard. Was also going to do some more stuff in the back, so we removed the hood both for better access for this connector to the solenoid and also some other things that will be covered in the future. Yes, confirmed that the boom cylinder is leaking at the seal, so that will need to be addressed. Started looking at being able to remove the counterweight for better access back here. It has some rubber covers on top of it. It's held in place by 3 big bolts, and then there is one more plastic cover with a threaded hole where you can have a lifting point. Here is that lifting point. Spent some more time with the multimeter trying to confirm the wiring for the solenoid back there where they were attaching in the cab. Chased the threads on the lifting point. There was a bit corrosion in there. And more time trying to figure out the wiring. Eventually, I was quite confident that all the extra wiring coming out from the key switch and the cut wire in the fuse box had nothing to do with the rotor tilt. And it has some kind of immobilizer on it. You have had to confirm with a little dongle to get it to start, but that seems to be aftermarket stuff. And had to start digging into the right side here under the fuel gauge and all that, and there is a lot of wiring and stuff there. And the wires seems to attach to a little black box back there. And we lifted off the counterweight. We used one of those chain blocks, makes it really easy. That came off very easily, that's good. Small leak I've been having back close to the pump, but more on that later in the video. Took apart the front end. There are a few grease points here that has to do with the controls, the travel controls, and they don't get grease very often, so when I do a bigger service on the machine I try to include them. Had removed some more panels for access to track that wiring that I think has to do with the immobilizer I want to remove. The joystick on the right side, with that removed, it was possible to start getting access to a black box there. Was still a little worried about just ripping it out, that it would cause any issues, so I did some temporary thing here, just hooking everything up with temporary connections, just to be able to do a test start and confirm that everything worked without that immobilizer part connected to anything. And with all of that gone, it started up just fine, so I'm just gonna get rid of all of it. Pulled out the fuse box and the key switch from the machine to be able to do proper connections. The immobilizer had some kind of ground connection up to the I think this is aftermarket, the cigarette lighter that is in the machine, so they just cut the cable there and added some insulating tape where it had been connected. Here they had kind of removed a section of the old cables. I added a little so they would be equal length rather than have one be too short. And the one on the key switch that was cut was also added a joint to. Where I had bad threads on the connection in the key switch, I added a nut on the back sides to ensure that it is on there nice and tight. Made sure to give everything in here a pretty good clean and get rid of a lot of build-up and dirt that has accumulated over the years. And since I was happy with what I was doing in the cab, I started bolting things back together, installing the fuse box, and the key could go back into place. Under or inside the left hand armrest that you can tilt up getting in and out of the machine, there are actually two grease points, one here in the front and then one in the back. That's a little trickier to access. And then the safety switch that had been removed earlier when we had issues was also put back into place. Maybe I over-greased that joint a little, but I made sure to wipe up any excess grease before putting the covers back on. Control panel bolts were going back into place. Machine was started and moved a little for better access for a cover under the pump. I could remove all of that temporary switch back here that was feeding the solenoid to get the machine to work. That's a temporary solution. And then I removed the cover under the pump. I wanted to clean up in here a little since it was in a good position to do a good cleanup. And there's quite a bit of build-up in here. It tends to happen with machine that spends time in the forest. Made sure to clean up a lot near the connections here that I want to undo and see if I suspect they have an O-ring seal. Did a kind of redneck test to see if there seems to be a lot of water suspended in the hydraulic oil. If you have a hot pan and put a little bit of hydraulic oil in there, if you see bubbles forming in it, that's a sign that you have a lot of water in the hydraulic oil, but couldn't see any bubbles really forming, so that's good. I missed undoing the connection back here. I had to undo the upper one first, even if it was just the lower one leaking for access. And this one is not the same kind that I have on the forest machines. That has a metal ring around the O-ring itself, but I found some O-ring of a suitable size that I'm using, and hopefully that will cure that tiny leak. So it's just a matter of bolting the connections in place and then the hoses themselves. More panels going back in place inside the cab. Hose that feeds some hot air up next to the windscreen. And the cover on top of the cabin heater element. And more cleaning underneath here before putting this panel in place. Here I skipped the one bolt at the far back that holds this panel in place because it's really annoying to get access to, so I just skipped that. I think it will be fine. And here you can see the immobilizer unit causing some of these issues. I think it has taken a hit because the solenoid, as that was going bad, I think it was drawing a lot more current through it than it should have, and all of that current was passing through the immobilizer unit. Then it was the seat, time for the seat to go back in. We ended up with it installed backwards, but it was possible to lift it and kind of turn it around. Finished up installing the covers and rubber cover for the left joystick and all of that in place, so the cab is getting there. I wanted to see if there was any grease fitting for these controls inside here, because it felt like it should be. I have never done anything down here, and turned out the grease fittings that are under here are rusted out and needs replacement. So this panel had to come undone. The footrest or for the travel control had to be removed, and a few other things. And there is access, and it's good time to clean up under here because this panel has never been removed in many years. With new grease fittings in place, these could be greased and everything could be bolted back up. As I reinstalled everything, I tried flipping one of the lower controls here around because long days I can start getting a little cramp in my right leg working the panels for controlling the rototilt attachment. But if that will be good, I'm not sure. But if it doesn't work, I'll turn it around again. And grease in that front location where there are, I think it's 3 grease connections. And then I could put that cover under the hydraulic pump back on. Machine was started to get access under the engine for some more work, but that won't be covered in this video. There is an access panel under here also, but as you will see, it's a little on the small side. But that's it for now. Have a great day.